I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah. That is what I heard them say way back in the day. I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it seems like since that day, yeah, yeah, we have sorely changed. I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah, yeah. That is what I heard them say, yeah. Way back in the day. I'll be buried in my grave, yeah, before I become a slave, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it seems like since that day, yeah, we have sorely changed. Whoa. Hey, hey. Whoa, oh, 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 oh. Whoa, oh, 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 oh,
And now, live from beautiful Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, you're watching My Fellow Americans with your host, Spike Cohen.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome to... Welcome. I probably need to cut this one. A bit long. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome to My Fellow Americans. I am literally Spike Cohen. If you're watching this, please share so that we can get as many people watching with us as possible. Comment on the live video with any questions that you have or any opinions, and I'll tell you if you're right or wrong, or even just to say hi. If you are watching this later on YouTube, please subscribe and then hit the bell. I'm not sure what the bell is, but we're told that if you don't hit the bell, then it doesn't count. So please hit the bell. If you see a bell, hit it. If you're listening to this on SoundCloud, press the follow button. Be sure to go to Twitter and follow us, Muddied Waters of Freedom, on Twitter. Go on Instagram, slide all up in our DMs or whatever the kids do on Instagram. Just anywhere you can find Muddied Waters Media, search it out and hang out with us. Again, I'd like to thank Muddied Waters Media for giving me this opportunity to be in front of you and talk from the comfort of my Anarcho chair. I'd like to thank Kroger for the delicious Kroger-flavored water that I drink on this and every episode of My Fellow Americans. Oh, that's delicious Kroger water. The music, both the intro and outro music that I use for this, and so far anyway, every episode of My Fellow Americans, is by my great friend Joe Davi. Find him on, that's Jodavi. Find him on Facebook. Find him on SoundCloud. Go to the Bandcamp. Buy everything that he has. It's like 99 cents a song. It's like $6 to buy everything. Just buy it all. You'll love it. You'll thank me later. Shout out to Tehran Turks' mom and him. I'm very excited about my guest tonight. My guest tonight is one of the busiest libertarians I know. I'm going to read all this off. She is the Deputy Director of Messaging for the Larry Sharpe for Senate campaign in New York. She is the Social Media Coordinator for Robin Koerner, who's the creator of the Weapons of Mass Persuasion program. She is a consultant for the Tarmy Clark for County Council campaign in Indiana. She is the political facilitator of the Libertarian State Leadership Alliance. In her free time, which she apparently has, she is one of the most talented artists I've ever witnessed. And she's also like the owner of like 52 iguanas. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, please welcome to the show, Resa Willis. Resa, thank you so much for joining.
Hi, Spike. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have you on. It seems like you've got plenty going on. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show.
No problem, man.
You inspire me with both your passion for the liberty movement and frankly, just for your ability to multitask. I brought you on under the auspices that we were going to talk about politics, but honestly, I'm hoping to just glean from you a little bit about how I can improve my time management skills, because I don't do half the things you do in a 24-hour period. So, I am, I think, as you know, I'm not sure if you want to call it anarchist, voluntarist, anarcho-capitalist, whatever. I'm somewhat agnostic as to whether electoral politics is even worth it sometimes, but folks like you really give me some hope that there might actually be possibility that we can have at least an electoral component to being more free tomorrow or next month or next year than we are now. So I applaud your efforts on what you're doing.
Thank you.
Now you're more of sort of a minarchist.
I am a minarchist, yes.
Okay.
Boo hiss. I can hear it already.
No. This show is actually, in fact, Matt, the other person on Muddied Waters Media, is also a minarchist. So this is a minarchist friendly program.
Awesome.
Most of my guests, I believe, have been minarchists or people that have reluctantly been dragged by me into Ancapistan. So we're definitely friendly to that. My feeling with that is that we both want less than there is now. And if minarchism is possible, we have to take that step. And if we get there and realize that's not possible, we're that much closer to what I want anyway. So either way, I'm fine with. So I'm definitely a minarchist ally. I will call it that.
See, that's a great way to look at it, and I that's what I tell people all the time. It's incrementalism is good sometimes. Sometimes we can't make that jump. That's a big jump to make. So if less government's the goal, that's, we got to get there somehow, right?
Exactly. Our disagreement is degrees of less government.
It's true.
How much, is it 95% or, 99.99999%? So, no, I'm fine with that. One of the things I ask my guests is sort of like what brought them here politically. What would you say brought you to libertarianism? Was it kind of a gradual evolution, or did you have a sudden aha moment, or how did you get there?
Well, that's a great question. I've been apolitical my entire life. Actually, when I was in high school, I was involved in everything. I was president of this, vice president, secretary, you name it. I was involved with everything. And a lot of my friends said, she's going to be a congresswoman or a senator someday. They swore I was going to go into politics. But as soon as I got to the real world, I realized I wanted nothing to do with that. So I abstained from the whole process. I abstained from voting for most of my life until about 3 years ago, I guess. And somebody threw me into Austin Peterson's group, and I didn't know what to think of that. I'd never been involved in politics, and I knew that there was a Democrat and there was a Republican Party, and that's all I knew.
Right.
I wanted no part in either one of those parties. You could call me an independent at that point, even though I wasn't involved politically at all. But after sitting in that group for a few months and sizing it up, I realized that this was a serious thing. There was another party that I'd never heard of, and it gradually grew on me. And I was sitting back and reading people's posts and looking at their ideas, and those things were resonating with me. And I thought, oh my God, I found my home. So I took one of those silly little tests, and that's a lot of us come into it that way, the political compass or whatever it was.
Right.
And I see a lot of people come into it that way, and they realize, hey, this is me. And that's kind of what it was for me. It was an aha moment. And I said, you know what, this is what I believe. This is well aligned to my worldview. And I had been thinking that way all my adult life. I just didn't realize that there was a place for me per se until I got thrown into this group. So that fast forwards me to something that I'm passionate about, and that's messaging. I found that messaging is kind of my niche in the party. When I see somebody with a good message and they know how to articulate it well, those are the people that I tend to attach to. And that is why, as much as Austin Peterson gets flack for jumping parties, I still credit him for getting me into this party. He's a good messenger. He knows how to articulate the ideas of liberty, and that resonated with me. And he's the one who really got me hooked on these ideas. So after I got involved with Austin and I helped him with his 2016 run for president, I was really roped in then. And this all happened very quickly. I think I got thrown into his group in December of 2015. And then I went to convention, I believe it was May 2016. And then I was all in from there. So 6 months, and it was just a downslide. It was going from apolitical to I'm all into this. I love this. This is my home. So after the 2016 convention, I found Adam Kokesh. And say what you will about Adam, but his messaging is on point. His book is wonderful. The speeches he gives are they really touch a nerve with people.
Right.
The way he articulates his message, the regular person can understand it. It's not above their heads. So I helped Adam with his tour for a while.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was his national coordinator. So I set up all his tour stops and his speakers in every state that he was going to. I believe this was fall of 2016. So right after I hopped off of helping Austin with his campaign, and I didn't do much for him, but I helped spread the word for him. But after Austin's campaign, I helped out Adam Kokesh and went full bore on that because I really liked his message. After Adam, I had kind of already found Larry. And there's Larry behind my shoulder. But Larry is who I supported in 2016 for VP. And something about him right off the bat, even before I really got close to Austin, Larry was really the person who caught my eye. I saw his video about his upbringing and how genuine he was and how heartfelt he was and how much of a real person Larry was. And that's the reason I supported him in 2016 for his VP run. So after I was done with Adam, I got interested in what Larry was doing, and I jumped onto his campaign last year when he declared in 2017 for his governor run. And I just said, hey, put me in, coach. Where can I help out? And I owe a lot to Larry. I'm gonna back up a little on this story. There's a special reason that I'm very dedicated to Larry, and it's not just because he's a wonderful person, which we all know he is, and he's one of our best messengers in the movement, hands down. I don't think many people would disagree with me on that. But for me personally, he really went above and beyond. Some people who have known me for a while know that I had a teaching job. I was in K-12. I've been in K-12 for 15 years at that point, and I was teaching in a middle school, all girls. I helped build that school from the ground up. It was quite a labor of love. Yeah, I really enjoyed what I did working with all those girls, and I was teaching science, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math are my passions in life. So great job. But somebody in the party blasted my past on Facebook. I'm not shy about talking about this because it's part of who I am. But when I was in early college, I was about 20 years old. I was married to an abusive man who got me into adult videos. Not something that I wanted in my life because I wanted to be a teacher. And of course, those two things don't gel, but it was a rough relationship and I didn't really have a choice in the matter. So he thrust me into that world, and I was part of that world for a little over a year. And I went about 15, 16 years in my career without any of that surfacing. Now, I always kind of had that monkey hanging over my back.
Right, because you don't, you sort of want to not have people know that,
But as time went on and I got successful in my teaching career, that feeling faded for me. And I got more confident that it was a thing in the past and it wouldn't resurface, because at that point at 15 years, I mean, if it hadn't come up since then, probably wouldn't, right?
Right. You think? Yeah, you would think so. Yeah.
So somebody called in an anonymous tip to my school district in the spring of, I believe it was 2016. They called me in. They said, "Hey, we found out about this. No big deal. You can keep teaching. As long as it doesn't go public and it doesn't go on any public forums, you're fine."
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they knew about it.
Right.
And I signed a contract with them that said if it did go public, I had to let them know. And I was signature bound to do that. And a Libertarian blasted my past on Facebook because I had made a post that I called the cops on a drunk driver.
A drunk driver. Yeah.
Yeah. And
which is the worst possible thing you can do, of course, is to.
Of course.
Right.
So that made me an instant statist and not a libertarian. So they dug into my past. This person blasted it on Facebook, and I had to go to my school board and say, "Hey, this is out here on social media." And they said, "You have two choices: resign, or we're going to fire you." So I refused to resign. I had just gotten the biggest honor in the district 2 months prior. Distinguished teacher, which only 2% in the district got. So it was a pretty big deal. And I said, I'm not going to resign. I haven't done anything wrong.
Right.
So I eventually got fired. And back to Larry. This is where this all leading up to. Larry called me up in January. And that was the month that the firing was official. And I think Larry noticed that I had made some posts about being depressed. I was very depressed over this incident.
I can imagine.
It rocked my world. I mean, that was my career of 15 years, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. So Larry noticed that I was having an issue moving forward because I couldn't go back into K-12. This was all over the news. It was national. It was international. I had Mexico, Britain, Canada, Venezuela. All these countries were publishing this story.
Right.
Reporters were all over it. It was crazy.
It's one of those sensational news things, right?
Yeah, it blew up so bad that my name was trending on Facebook. So there was no way I was going back into K-12 because even now, if you Google my name, it's all over the place. It's still there 2 years later. Yeah. So I kissed my career goodbye at that point. And Larry called me up and he said, "Hey, let's talk about your career." And he spent hours with me over the next couple of weeks, asking me about my passions, my talents, my desires for the future, and taking inventory of those things and coaching me to carve out a new path. And we talked about things like political consulting, because I was very passionate about the Libertarian Party and helping people out and whatnot. And then we mentioned my art, and I said, that's something I really want to pursue. I hadn't touched it in 20 years. I kind of gave up on it. And Larry said, "Let's do this. I'll teach you how to start a business." And he coached me through all of the steps in starting a business and branding myself and marketing myself.
Oh, wow.
And it's because of Larry that I have this business today. And it's because of Larry that I get to work from home all week long and do art and make money and pay the bills that way.
I need to call Larry, actually. See, I had no idea about that.
Mm-hmm. So Larry was my saving grace. I stayed in bed for months after I got fired because I was that depressed.
And I can imagine. Yeah.
He was the one who helped lift me out of that funk. And I am forever indebted to him for that. So I've been working on his campaign since last year when he declared. I was helping with the social media for a while. And then I got promoted to Deputy Director of Messaging, which means I'm in charge of all the social media. I manage the team, and I have a wonderful team under me. We've just hit 1.6 million in reach on Facebook posts. The Twitter page is amazing. It's run by Missy Moody Richmond. She's such an asset to the team. And I've got Carrie under me in Facebook. So we're really rocking and rolling. We have the most successful social media campaign out of any libertarian in the country right now. So
yeah, I had read that you're, I mean, forget being the fact that he's one of the most prominent libertarians in memory. I mean, your campaign's doing so well that he's not just actually reaching a point where he has a shot at winning the election, but he's raising the profile of the Libertarian Party across the whole country in a positive way. It gets raised often, but not always in the positive way. I had actually seen that you're doing such a great job. I guess one of your major party competitors seems to have sort of copied your strategy lock, stock, and barrel. And as frustrating as I can imagine that can be, it's also a testament to how powerful you've been in a campaign. You know, you think of this campaign that has a massive war chest, and the state election apparatus is on its side to try to keep out anyone but the two major parties, and yet they're still having to resort to copying what you guys are doing because you're doing such a good job. That's a testament to what you've done, obviously.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. I didn't have that perspective. I think this just hit yesterday or the day before. I didn't have that perspective at first. Well, I really hadn't visited Mark. It's Mark Molinaro. He's the Republican running for governor in New York, and he's the sacrificial lamb because Republicans just can't win there. It's a blue state, so Larry's got a better chance. But
he's taking votes from Larry. If only Larry could win, if only the Republican wasn't taking his votes, is what I'm told.
Yeah, exactly. But people are still voting establishment because it's a big R, and that's the fight we're fighting up there. Right. But yeah, I knew that Molinaro's social media was crap, and I didn't go visit it just because I had done that a couple of times in the past, and it was abysmal. So I just left it alone, and somebody alerted me to something yesterday, and Lauren McKinnon, who was on the campaign for a long time, and she said, what are the stats comparing Larry and Molinaro? So I went to look, and there was a huge spike in Molinaro's stats, which really shocked me. So I went to his page, and it was like a carbon copy of everything that we're doing for Larry's social media, and I was livid. I was in the campaign chat just cursing and getting upset.
I can't even imagine. Yeah.
And I don't think they've ever seen me mad in that campaign chat ever. But I was just going off yesterday about it. And Molinaro has been on our page. He has commented on our page. He has engaged with us. So we've kind of baited him into doing that, and it's worked. He's easily triggered. So we were taunting him on his social media presence and saying, hey, you want some tips? Do you like what you see here? And I guess that he stepped up his game and ripped off everything we had. So yes, imitation is the best form of flattery, but I'm still pissed off about it.
I can't. Yeah, I'm sure you're, I can look at this as a somewhat uninterested third party and say, wow, that just shows how great you're doing. But I can only imagine how frustrating that must be on your side. I can't even imagine with that. You're also the social. Well, actually, let's talk a little bit more about Larry.
Sure.
You guys are doing well enough that there's really a good chance that Larry can win this. And I mean, in Libertarian Party politics, past the, I guess, county level, it's often just talking about growing the brand and messaging. But this is actually like he could possibly he could actually win, which is you would think that's the point of electoral politics. But share with me a little bit about what Larry's vision is as if he were elected governor of New York, what the problems he sees and what he'd like to change.
Well, probably the biggest thing in New York right now is the obvious, the taxes, the regulations, the burdens on small businesses. And that's been a lot of the frustration in New York, is that people are moving away from New York in record numbers because they can't make it there. These people who start the small businesses, they're taxed to death, they're regulated to death. They can't thrive, so they leave the state. So one of Larry's big pushes is to empower small businesses. He's been touring the entire state, visiting these small businesses, talking to them, getting their points of view, and a big bulk of his platform is running on cutting those regulations, lowering those taxes, things that stifle innovation there. And bringing new alternatives to things like the MTA. The MTA is crumbling in New York. Infrastructure is crumbling in New York. And obviously all the taxes that they're collecting in New York, they're not doing anything.
No.
It's just getting worse and worse. So people are being overtaxed for what? Crappy infrastructure, crappy
the roads,
transportation, my roads, everything, right? So, in addition to helping small businesses thrive and keeping people in New York, Larry wants to innovate. He wants to offer alternatives. So things like ride shares. Ride shares are getting pushed out of the city because
I've read about that because it's affecting the taxi unions and all of that stuff.
Yeah, of course, it's affecting the monopolies there, right?
Right.
But these are the things that people need there. They need alternatives to things that just aren't working. Small businesses, alternatives to existing structures there, big pieces of Larry's platform. He's also advocating for fathers' rights, which
oh, wow.
Yeah, not a lot of candidates are doing that.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not sure I know of another like actual person running for office who even talks about that. That's very interesting.
The only other person I know is doing it is Cash Jackson, and he's running for governor in Illinois. These are the only two guys that I know that are really pushing fathers' rights and how much the court system really screws over fathers.
Right.
So Larry's getting a lot of traction on that. He's passionate about that issue. So those are kind of his big things that he's running on there. And our big challenge, obviously, is the name recognition, getting him around the states, getting people to meet him, getting people to realize that he is running. That's probably our biggest challenge.
He exists in the first place. Right.
Exactly. Because once people know he exists, they love him. Right. I mean, Larry, he's easy to love. Once you hear him talk, you get hooked. So our campaign fundraising has been mostly going to getting Larry around the state. Now we're shifting that to advertising, and he's going to have some TV ads, which is a big deal. We're really happy about that. Yeah. We've been funneling a lot of money into our social media to get the events around New York, so people come out to see him. We're doing some things that haven't really been done in a big libertarian campaign outside of the presidential campaigns, obviously.
Wow.
So Larry's got a good shot here. Like I said, the Republican really doesn't have a shot. He's a sacrificial lamb. It's a blue state. Republicans don't do well. It's just a fact of the matter in New York. Very, very statist place.
Right. Yeah. See, I live in the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area, and we get a lot of people that move down from, everywhere up north, but especially in New York. And, if you talk to them, they, besides, weather and stuff like that, their biggest complaint is the taxes, and that, they'll come down here and they'll say, my property taxes are 1/10 of what they were up there. And we actually, like, the roads here are actually okay, we there aren't potholes everywhere. And, they kind of marvel at that, but yet, I would imagine most of them were voting either R or D. So what were you expecting that? I don't actually, they say insanity is, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. I don't actually think that's true, that's actually the definition of insanity, but it sounds good. And it definitely, I mean, it is insane to keep doing that and then be shocked that that's what results from it. So that's really good that he's doing that. And you talked about Larry doing, focusing on small business. You're a testament that he actually talks the talk when it comes to small business, knowing how to start a small business. So that's really good that he's focusing on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've got about 3 months left in the campaign. We're really excited with where it's going. We're getting a lot more media appearances for Larry. He was just on Kennedy, which was a big grab for us.
Yeah,
Thank you. Lauren McKinnon got that for us. She's a dynamo. I'm excited to see what's coming up in the next 3 months. I'm going to try to make it up to New York for November for the election.
That is awesome. So you are also the social media coordinator for Robin Koerner, and this is someone I didn't really know up until you started sharing his stuff. I think I actually knew he was one of the moderators for the debates at the convention, right?
Yeah, he was moderator for the chair debate.
Okay,
I don't know if he did vice chair, but chair debate for sure.
Yeah, the chair debate. And I only remember him because he had a I believe British accent. Right?
Yes. So that's what he's known for.
So then when you started sharing his stuff and I looked, I'm like, oh, I know that guy, or I think I know that guy, or there's two people in the Libertarian Party with British accents. But he created the Weapons of Mass Persuasion program, which you described as a revolutionary program aimed at transforming our ability to win support for the cause of liberty. I've read a lot of pretty much anything you've shared. I've read a lot of his, I guess they were blog posts that you posted where he kind of talks about it, and I love it. But before I get into my thoughts on it, tell us about the philosophy behind weapons of mass persuasion.
So this goes back to my passion for messaging and why I've been in the party and everything that I've done for people in the party. I latched onto Robin because of his message. I met him in Omaha, Nebraska at the Unconvention and got to talking to him and realized that he had a really great program, and it was just different than everything out there. It's a way to talk to people in a way that reaches their hearts. You know, you hear hearts and minds a lot as a motto for our messaging, but Robin really does that with his program and the way he talks to people. And just seeing him talk live, you can tell he's got that kind of charisma that connects to people. And it's not just people in the echo chamber. This guy built up the biggest coalition from the left and the right for Ron Paul. I think it was something like 10,000 people. He was able to unite people across the aisle to come together for Ron Paul, which is huge. So this guy knows how to talk to people of all walks of life, and he knows how to talk to them in a way that doesn't turn them off. And I think that's part of our problem. A lot of people in the party, I'm sorry to say it, but this is a problem that I've seen. People don't know how to talk to other people. And when they try to do it, they turn them off because they want to be intellectually superior. They're smug, they're condescending, they're snarky, and we need to stop that. I wish we could listen to Robin more. People like Robin, people like Larry, who know how to talk to other people and not turn them away, because we have great ideas. That's not our problem. We have great ideas. We have a great philosophy, but the way that we transmit those ideas to other people often turns them off, and we need to learn how to flip that switch. And Robin's great at that. So his Weapons of Mass Persuasion is a program where it teaches you how to talk to these people. And there's psychology behind it. Robin, he has a physics degree. He's great at psychology. He knows how to read people. He knows how to talk to people. So it's not just one of those surface level programs. We have a lot of people in the movement who their shtick as speakers is telling us how to message to other people. And I think Robin has a very unique way of doing that. He has a great perspective on it, and it's very effective. But getting his name out there is my goal. That's why I signed on to be with him to help with the social media, because I think Robin is one of those hidden gems in the LP that not a lot of people know about, and we need to get him out there. We need to get him speaking at places. We need to get his content more prominent. So that's why I'm helping him, because his message is on point. His approach is amazing. And I think that we could really benefit from more people like Robin, but he's just, I didn't even know about him until I met him.
I was going to say, you're doing a great job at promoting him, because I put him together with the British accent, but I'd never heard of him until you were put. So you're doing a good job with that.
Thank you.
Like I had said, I've read a lot of the stuff that you've posted, and it sounds to me almost like stoicism applied to debate and campaigning. There's, instead of kind of throwing your talking points at people, there's a lot more reflection. You're asking yourself questions. You're asking the quote-unquote opponent, the person you're talking to, or I guess you probably don't see them as an opponent, but you're talking to the other person and asking them questions to get more perspective on where they are. You recognize that, with few exceptions, most of us want essentially the same things, even if we have completely different worldviews as to what that looks like. We all want good things, right? Like there are very few people who are like, I want people to suffer. And so when we come from that perspective of like, okay, I know that and I do this, which is why I'm saying when we, because I mean me, not you, me. When I am talking to people and I'm like, I know, that what I want is, the way that we're going to, be free, and I know what the state is doing to people and so forth, and these fools don't, and so I find myself, having to kind of pull myself back, and this is really something like, even in the last, I say recently, like in the last few weeks, I've had to kind of realize that, okay, yes, our philosophy is good. Yes, they don't get it. Maybe part of the reason they don't get it is because we come at them. First of all, our belief system is so far outside of their Overton window. It's like in another room that, and for those who don't know, the Overton window is sort of a publicly what's considered an acceptable realm of opinion. So, for example, if the extremes on let's say gun control. So if let's say the most extreme example of most extreme polls on the gun control, the most extreme would be mine, which is everyone should be able to carry whatever they want with zero restrictions whatsoever. The other extreme would be no one should be able to carry any weapons ever for any reason, and they should be arrested and charged to the fullest extent of the law. Those are the extremes. Most people are somewhere in the middle. And so the quote unquote Overton window is what is considered acceptable opinion. So if someone said anything outside of that window, it's seen as crazy on either side. And so the goal of trying to message people on what is essentially, to most people, a radical ideology is to help them move that window closer to where you are, to see that what you're actually advocating for is reasonable. Right. And so not just reasonable, but that they, maybe will agree with it, but at least that it's reasonable and should be considered acceptable opinion. And when we come at them wide eyed and, use a lot of inside baseball terminology that they don't, we roads them and they don't even know what we're talking about. When we do that, as satisfying as it might be in that moment, and as much as we like sharing screenshots of it in our arcane libertarian groups that we're all in, it doesn't really help anything, and it just makes us look weirder to those people, and they continue to vote Democrat, Republican, whatever else, So that's sort of, I assume that's sort of what Robin's saying, right?
Yes, that's right up his alley there. So his shtick, and the reason I mesh so well with him is because of his messaging. He knows that we can't just go take our ideology, our talking points, and beat people over the head with it. Like you were just saying, it doesn't work that way. People don't want to be approached with logic first. People are emotional creatures, so you have to connect with them emotionally. You have to seek to understand first. You have to understand that person. You have to find the common ground with that person. And then you talk to points that they care about, their heart first, before you hit them with the logic. That's how you hook them in. We do the opposite. We just want to hit them with logic because we're intellectual creatures.
Right, we're very philosophy driven, right?
We are, which is great, but it turns people off. So our approach needs to be examined more closely. Right. And that's what Robin is great at. That's what Larry is great at. That's why I help these people, because they know how to connect with people. And I'm not just talking about us libertarians, they know how to connect with people from all walks of life.
Very good stuff, because most walks of life are not libertarian.
No,
it's, what is it they say? Economically conservative and socially awkward is the
yes.
what libertarians are. I don't consider myself socially awkward, but I will say this: when I talk libertarian philosophy to people, I feel my inner nerd just spewing all over them, and then when I hear what they say, it's so far outside of what my Overton window is that it's sort of that now it's a clash, and so I've really had to make peace with, for example, like I said, I have some very radical beliefs, and I am an ANCAP, and I'm not an ANCAP Trump supporter. I'm an actual ANCAP, and so when people talk about things like public schooling, the military, the police, things like that, I am slowly, even now, coming to terms with the fact that if I don't meet them where they are in talking about it, and if I just throw my ideological beliefs and my philosophical logical conclusions at them, they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to get personally offended, and I've accomplished only negative things. Like they're going to now, not only are they going to vote however they were going to vote, they're going to do it angrily and think of me while they're doing it. And so I'm not helping things. I may be, meeting my smug self-satisfaction that I'm, the purest of the pure libertarians. And one of the running jokes on the show is, no one can be 100% right. Only I am right. And that's, that's funny to me anyway. But you can't come at an actual, discussion talking to people that way, obviously.
No.
Yeah. So, now, I'm a little embarrassed by this because as I just said, I pride myself in knowing at least a tiny bit about everything, which is not arrogant at all. But I've never actually heard of the Libertarian State Leadership Alliance. So what is it, and what is your role there?
Well, that's a good question because I'm still trying to figure that out myself. I was approached at National Convention, and I was asked to consider taking this role.
Okay.
And I said, I'll think about it. I took a couple of days and I said, yeah. So my understanding of it right now, we haven't met yet. We've just all been too busy to do so. And we're all working on campaigns until November. So
Right.
we're going to ramp it up once November ends. But
Okay.
my understanding of this is one of the goals, at least one of my goals in my role that I'm going to be doing, is facilitating communication between state leadership. So whereas all of the states are kind of isolated right now and they do their own things, they have their own systems. My understanding of this is that I'm going to have the state leaders, the chair, vice chair, and whatnot, talking to each other, opening up those lines of communication to talk about what's working in their state, what's working well, what kind of systems do they have in place that maybe another state can utilize more successfully, or on the flip side, what's not working well for them and what other states can avoid those kind of
What can we drop
pitfalls
across the board? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we've got 50 different states doing 50 different things. And I think that if we pull our resources and we communicate a little bit more among the states, that we may be able to get some great ideas and strengthen our state affiliates in the process. So that is one of the goals of LSLA that we're going to be working on. And I believe that's something that's going to be one of my major tasks as the political facilitator.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for making me feel a little bit better about not knowing. I feel better that you're
Yeah, no,
you're not 100%
don't feel
sure
bad.
either. Because I went on I found a website and I went to the About Us section and it was blank, or the Who We Are section and it was blank. I think there was one page and it had just like a PDF or the screenshots of the white paper about it, and I was reading through and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna have her on my show. Let me just admit that I don't know what I'm talking about and have her unpack it a little bit for me. So I appreciate that. But that's good. I mean, it's good that, I mean, if you are a minarchist or a federalist, the idea of having 50 different organizations, entities trying different things and seeing what works. But part of that means also coordinating with each other to see what works. So if someone's doing something that works but no one else knows it, then you're not getting the full benefit of that, as opposed to, so it's sort of that decentralized, but still communicating, almost like a blockchain type of thing, where you're communicating with each other and seeing what the best way moving forward is.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Thank you. I would be remiss to have you on my show, and you've already brought up Austin Peterson, but to not mention the Freedom Ninjas and give a shout out to the Freedom Ninjas, of course.
Yeah, they're my original family.
Right.
Those were the first friends that I made when I got into this movement, and I'm still really tight with them. We go up to Austin's dad's farm a couple of times a year. We just got back from there, and we just meet as a friend group. It is a family.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I've found myself in a strange position of having to defend this lately, just because people are still angry that he jumped from our party to the Republican Party. And how can you be affiliated with that? I don't care. He's the reason I'm here. Everybody in that group is the reason that I'm still here. It's my family. They're my friends. And I'm very thankful to Austin Peterson, and I'm thankful to his supporters, who I am proud to call my friends. So.
Yeah, and here's the thing with that. Like I said, I'm a little agnostic as to whether electoral politics works or not anyway. So and I'm probably not, obviously I'm not one of the people that's upset about him going Republican. I thought as soon as there was even mention that he was being courted, I'm like, do it. Of course you're going to do it. Why wouldn't you do it? Like if you one person who I know you're not a big fan of, so I won't say his name, but he once mentioned that he said, even if you don't think there's a chance that you'll win, run anyway, because if nothing else, it can get you earned media recognition. You're putting your ideology out there. If nothing else, can get where you're not having to pay, or you can leverage whatever media you can get, whether it's social media or establishment terrestrial media, or whatever you can get, radio media, TV media, like what Larry's doing now. Whatever you can get to go out there and get it. So if one of the major parties is courting you with no pretext that you have to drop any of your actual your actual beliefs or water down your message, why not do it? So I mean, I'm not I think the Libertarian Party is more than likely the best vehicle, if there even is one, to achieve what we want. But I also think that there are steps in between there. And I'm not 100% sure. I wouldn't call myself a partisan to any party. So, but again, I'm not one of the ones attacking you. And I agree with Austin that you go where, what is it? Water finds the path of least resistance. You look for where you can put your message out, and you do so.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you with everything that you said. I know there are a lot of people that wish he would have stayed in the party, and I understand their reasoning. But like you said, he had a chance to grab a bigger platform to spread the ideas of liberty, and he didn't change anything about his platform.
Yeah,
he took the same platform to the R, and he espoused all those same talking points under the R, and I have no problem with that. The Republican Liberty Caucus, you know what? If that's what it takes to get our ideas to the mainstream, then I think that's fine for us to do that right now.
Even as a first step, even if that's not the long-term goal, even if as a first step that gets it out there. Ron Paul was a Republican. How many of these, probably at least for maybe our generation, the number of people that are in the Libertarian Party where it started with Ron Paul, he was a Republican. He ran as a Libertarian for president in the Reagan years, and half the Libertarians now may or may not have even been alive when that happened. But, he was a Republican. He ran for the Republican nomination for president. His biggest moments were up on a podium debating with, Rudy Giuliani and Duncan Hunter and Mitt Romney and stuff like that. He wouldn't have been able to do that if he'd been running as a Libertarian. He would have been arguing with other Libertarians.
Absolutely.
Like the rest of us do. So I don't have a problem with that. Unfortunately, as we know, Austin did not win the Republican nomination for Senate in Missouri. He still did very well, considering that the GOP had already started campaigning for Hawley, all but endorsed him weeks before the primary. If you look at the actual vote count, he got, I believe he got nearly as many votes in his primary election, for to get the nomination as the Libertarian candidate did in the 2012 Senate election in Missouri. So, put it this way: if a Libertarian on that same day, so a member of the Libertarian Party, had gotten those kind of numbers, they'd be doing cartwheels right now. They would be like so thrilled that they did that well. And when I look at, because I'm a professional. Well, I guess I'm a trolling hobbyist, and so I go on Josh Hawley's stuff, and I just see it's one ladder gif after the next, and one no thanks, I'm voting for Austin, I don't want a ladder climber, and just the Freedom Ninjas, as when you compare their size to their reach on social media, and when you consider that the future of media is social media, I was very just seeing that. I thought, even if they lose this, even if he gets 2,000 votes, all of them Freedom Ninjas, the what they were able to do, what you guys were able to do messaging wise, was phenomenal, considering that every odd was stacked against you. So I have nothing but respect. Austin's a minarchist. There's obviously a lot of political things I disagree with him on, philosophical things or whatever. But in terms of what he's doing, the people that are complaining, how many votes did they get? Like compared to him, like how many tens of thousands of votes did they get while having a major party attacking them while they're trying to do it? So I have nothing but good things to say about him, as I'm sure you do as well.
Well, he's great at mobilizing an army behind him. And one thing that he was able to do, even in his presidential run, was get a lot of the youth involved. And I think we need that in our movement. We need more youth, and he was great at that. So, and those youth, they're technology savvy, they're social media savvy. So that's why he had such an army on social media.
It's insane.
Yeah, it was. He'd post something in one of our groups and say, "Hey, check this out," and then 3 minutes later, the entire thread was filled by ninjas.
It was. I was
bing,
inspired.
Bing, bing, bing.
I was inspired. Yeah, it was. So I'm in the Freedom Ninja group, and I helped take part in a couple of adding some ladder pictures and stuff to some posts. Because
Awesome.
Again, I'm just like, you know what? I mean, again, if there was someone I'm not in Missouri and I'm not a Republican and I'm not a minarchist, but I love a good trolling as much as anyone else, and as much as the next guy, and B, he wants to go in the same direction I do, maybe not as far as I do, but in the same direction, and C, Hawley kind of struck me as the stereotypical smarmy ladder climber of major party politics that I'm sure will be shooting for president in 2028 or something. So I if me dropping a couple of troll comments helped with the spread, and I mean it obviously hurt him because there were people that quote unquote normies, people that were obviously not freedom ninjas, who started saying the same stuff, and it was like, yeah, okay, well it obviously works. So no, I thoroughly enjoyed that. I did not think he was going to win just because of, especially once the actual party pretty much endorsed him. I mean, they started putting out, stuff just solely for him. I thought, okay, this is they're closing ranks, and this is sort of like when they realized, there wasn't any use in fighting Trump anymore, and they just sort of closed ranks around him even before it was over. It's like, once they do that move, then that's what happens. But again, he got far more reach doing that than he would have as a Libertarian candidate. So, what's that say? Yeah. So in your, I guess you have spare time somehow. You are in my, and I cannot underestimate how, I cannot understate, I'm completely uneducated when it comes to art. So you take this with as many grains of salt as you can muster. But in my opinion, for whatever it's worth, you are one of the most talented artists I know of, that I've seen. In my opinion, I was trying to look for a word to describe your art because I like to sound fancy. Photorealistic was the best thing I could find.
There you go.
Photorealism. Your art looks like so you do a lot of animal art, like iguanas and dogs and things like that.
Yeah.
It looks like an actual iguana or a dog or whatever it is that you've drawn or are drawing, and like it looks like like an HD photo of it. And even when you get more surreal with the coloring or whatever, it just looks like a photo that has been through some filter to make it look like that. And I am blown away by it. I think it's absolutely amazing. I assume this isn't something you just realized that you had the talent for. Is this something that's kind of a lifelong thing that you've had a passion for?
Yeah, I always knew I had kind of a gift for art, and I pursued it all through high school, and I went to I was in the International Baccalaureate program when I was in high school, and I don't know if many people these days have heard of it or if it's still a thing, but it was for the ultra nerds. It was a program all the nerds were in, and I was in it, and it was taking up too much of my time, and I couldn't take art courses, and I was really upset about that. So I am an International Baccalaureate dropout, so I could take extra art, and it's okay. I enjoyed my high school a little bit more when I dropped out, but I took extra art classes because I enjoyed it, and I knew I had a talent for it. And I was in AP art, and AP art back then, what we did is we put together portfolios of 40 different pieces, multimedia, and we sent those portfolios off to Princeton. And Princeton would score our work and send it back to us. And I was the only junior in a class full of seniors in high school in this art class. And I was the only one who got a perfect score from Princeton.
I believe it.
And my senior year, I got a full ride to Pratt, and they're in Brooklyn, I believe. They're in New York, around the city. So I got a full ride to Pratt, and my mom said to me, I would really reconsider. She urged me to reconsider what career I was pursuing because, and in not so many words, she told me that starting artists are a real thing.
Yeah.
And I guess she just didn't want to see me in that predicament. So I decided to stay close to home, get my teaching degree, and I gave up on art. I hadn't done a serious piece since I was about 20 years old.
Oh, wow.
So I just left it alone for a long, long time until all of this hit me. I lost my job, and Larry came to me, and he's the reason I'm doing this right now. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this because I haven't touched it in so long. I thought my talent would atrophy, but it was still there. And
if your talent has atrophied, then I'm not sure what what it would have looked like before. But it's sort of like when you compress a photo and it loses something, but you can't actually tell. So whatever atrophy may have happened, it's certainly not perceptive. It's not perceptible anyway, to me anyway.
Thank you.
Again,
Thank you.
I'm just I remember you first shared, you had said I just put my website up for my art. If you want to check it out, I was like, oh, cool, she does art, and I went to it. And I'm like, holy crap! Like I was like, I was not ready for that. I was absolutely amazed. I'm like, because again, I go to, I'm sure if you and I went to an art museum, you're gonna have a much different experience than me. I'm gonna look at a lot of the, surrealist pieces and postmodern stuff, and I'm like, okay, that looks like I could do that. Like, my wife took me to a. Actually, I took my wife to an art museum nearby, and there was some kind of surrealist thing there, and it was interesting to look at. But it was essentially acrylic that had been thrown about on a canvas, and I'm like, and it was the artist is trying to convey whatever. I'm like, okay, great, that's great to me anyway. And for whatever my normie opinion is worth when it comes to art, I look at something that you've done, and I'm like, holy crap! Like I'm blown away by it. So there's only so much I can only say so much in terms of what my opinion has in terms of value, but I certainly like it.
I appreciate that. And for anybody who may watch this, I want to say a genuine, heartfelt thank you to the people who have helped me keep this business going, who are coming to me and giving me their trust to make pieces for them. It's helping me survive. I'm still a college professor for biology, part-time, but the art is the bulk of my income now. And most of it is coming from people within the Libertarian Party who have been my support system.
That's awesome.
I don't even advertise. I'll just put something out there that I drew and say, yeah, here's a picture of my latest thing. And people are in my DMs asking for things. So that's so cool. It's been so easy. It's amazing. I'm just waiting for the rug to be pulled out from under me because it's been so easy so far, and I'm still a little uneasy about it because I'm thinking, okay, this is sustaining me right now. I don't know if this is going to continue to happen this way. I need to find another job just as a backup. So I'm still a little bit nervous about doing it mostly full time, but
this is your first foray into having your own small business though, right?
It is. It is.
So I started a business in 1998, web design business, when I was 16. And I had when it started, actually, like, I was like, oh, wow, I'm actually making money, and I can, I don't have to do something else. I don't have to live with my parents anymore, that type of stuff. A couple of years later, I had that same feeling like, okay, what's going to give? And the thing is, I mean, the rug already was pulled out from under you, right? So, I mean, this is that, restoration after that. And I'm glad to know that I can also thank Larry for pulling you into inspiring you and letting you know that you can do it and coaching you along to do that. I think that's awesome. My opinion of Larry has gone up quite a bit in this conversation just by knowing that and how he personally helped you. I think Larry's a very cool, magnetic guy. I haven't really interacted with him personally. I know that there's some, ideological stuff we disagree with, but that's true of almost every non-crazy person and me. But I definitely, it's good to know that that he was involved in that, and you can give me the link later, and I'll put it in the show notes so people can go and check out your art. I definitely have to bring him up, and I believe he's going to be my guest next week. Your significant other, I guess you're the significant. I always you're the significant. You're slightly less significant other, Joshua Smith. Does he go by Joshua or Josh?
Joshua is his preferred name.
Okay.
But people call him Josh all the time too.
Well, that's the thing. So I started when I was writing stuff, I'm like, Josh, and I'm like, you know what? It's Joshua everywhere. So let me just make sure that's so. Joshua is the recently elected at-large representative for the Libertarian National Committee. I will assume that you were at least part of his campaign when he was going for leadership with the LNC. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now, with Joshua's position in the LNC, what would you like to see, and I guess what would Joshua like to see happen in the Libertarian Party moving forward? What is his vision for that?
Um, two major points that come to mind, and these are points that he ran his campaign off of, and he's developing right now. Candidate support. So we are working with the Mises Caucus to help candidates out, and we've had a couple of executive calls in this past week to talk about the infrastructure for that. But our main priority is to get our seated representatives reelected, like Brandon Finney, Caleb Dyer, and whatnot, and really push the campaigns of other people. So we are building out a committee that is going to focus solely on that, our candidate support, and that's just getting their names out there, doing social media for them, fundraising, everything that the candidates really need from us. So that's going to be one of his big pushes that he's working on, and also our marketing for the party. Now, this is something I can't talk about this a lot right now because it's still kind of a hush hush thing. But we're working with Robin Koerner on a.
Are we getting exclusive news on My Fellow Americans?
A little bit. Okay. I'm trying not to divulge it all because it's still kind of a behind the scenes thing.
Stay tuned, everyone. Yeah.
We are going to be presenting at the next LNC meeting at Phoenix in September, but we are proposing a rebranding of the Libertarian Party, and I have already put out some of the images that Robin Koerner came up with. He and I have been working together to get a feel on how this new look, this new marketing approach is resonating with the people in our party, and so far we've gotten a lot of great feedback on it. So look for some image changes here in the future.
Libertarian Party rebranding by one of my favorite artists.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Like this is the brainchild of Robin Koerner. So we've been working behind the scenes to put this together, and he's going to be talking at the LNC meeting, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But it looks really amazing so far, and the feedback that we've gotten has been 99% positive.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. I know another thing with that that all three of us agree with actually is that there is this how do I put this? There's a troubling element within the Libertarian Party, and I'm gonna, because I try to be at least somewhat educational on this show. A lot of my people that watch this are not actually libertarians, so I back up sometimes when I'm doing some inside baseball stuff. The term libertarianism or libertarian was originally termed by so-called libertarian socialists, but the history of the actual Libertarian Party, the American Libertarian Party, is based entirely on in fact, it actually says it in founding structural documents or whatever, laissez-faire capitalism, private property rights, propertarianism, sort of the opposite of socialism, even libertarian socialism, where everyone voluntarily gives up all their stuff for some reason. So there's a rift because the I guess libertarian socialists say, well, we're the original libertarians, to which I love to say, yeah, but you abandoned it and we homesteaded it, and are you claiming it as your property? All that to say that one thing I've noticed with Joshua is that this is a private property party, and that's what the purpose of it is, and more importantly than at least in my mind anyway, than defining what the purpose of a specific party is that we as libertarians believe that private property and respect for the rights and private properties of other is the best system moving forward for us to be able to compete with one another for scarce resources without killing each other, and that it is that system of voluntary interaction based on within the structure of a private property system that we're able to not just be able to compete and to thrive, but actually create post scarcity where there isn't scarcity anymore. I mean, you look at where we are now, it's because of voluntary interactions that neither of us is worried about starving to death. We are sitting here on, fancy devices that didn't exist 10 years ago, at least not for our income bracket, and we're able to live stream to the entire world, who they themselves on any device can pick it up and watch it in with a 4 or 5 second delay. All of that is because of, for lack of a better word, capitalism. And so if we, as if the purpose of libertarianism is to replace the state-driven, command economy, we're replacing it with a market economy, with
Yes.
private property. I could go on and do go on for this for several hours, which is why my wife has me doing this to you guys instead of her. So she thanks everyone, including Resa, for tolerating all of this. But but I've noticed that Joshua's really been pushing hard to not purge people, but the ideology, and say, if you're here, this is what our goal is.
Yes.
And so, I respect that he's doing that.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not a purge, and some people are interpreting it that way, that it's a purge. That's not. It's it's reaffirming our basic principles.
Right.
That's all it is. That's all this resolution was. It's reaffirming our basic principles and saying, this is what we believe in. You don't fit here. You're a square peg and we're a round hole. You don't fit here. It goes against everything, our basic tenets, our basic principles that we believe in. It goes against all of that. And then some people were making the argument that, well, what if they want to start a commune and they want to be socialists that way? Okay, that's great. If they want to do that, let them do that, as long as they're not forcing other people to do that with them. But that's not what they're espousing.
No, it isn't. It isn't.
It is not.
That's also not socialism. That's voluntary communalism. That's
correct.
That's like the kibbutzes in Israel. Socialism is not. In order to have a voluntary commune and respect that others aren't doing it, you have to respect private property rights.
Correct.
Or at least tolerate them. Even if you don't respect them, you at least have to tolerate that others do respect them and be willing to not, engage in, actions of force to try to change that. That's not communism. That's not socialism. Socialism and communism, and people always say, well, real communism has never been tried. And that's technically true, because anytime you try to get masses of people to give up everything they have, force it into a collective, give everything that they have and take out only what they absolutely need, the only way that you can enforce anything that even resembles that slightly is through massive state socialism.
Yes.
There is no libertarian socialism. You can have that as an ideology, just like I can have an ideology where our system is going to be funded by, cold fusion from everyone snapping their fingers. I can say that. And that's a legitimate ideology because I just made it up. But there's the reality of, can that happen? No. Snapping your fingers is not going to create enough energy for us to live off of. And just like you're not going to, because of our as human beings, our perceived self-interested nature, you have to have a system that works on the fact that we're all looking for our own enlightened self-interest, or people say greed, but ultimately it's we are operating based on protecting ourselves and then those who are closest to us. And if you have a system that says, no, none of that matters, we're all a collective, you're not your personhood really isn't that, doesn't matter at all, and you're really just a cog in a machine, A, that's not anything that resembles libertarianism to me, and B, it doesn't work. It doesn't. It always leads to famine. It always leads to mass killings, and the degree to which it happens and how quickly it happens is only to how much is directly correlated to how strongly they try to do it. The reason Venezuela, everyone isn't already starving to death, is because it was more incremental how they moved towards socialism. There wasn't a violent revolution like in Russia where they immediately started, starving to death. So, I could go. I'm sure we can agree with each other for hours, but I'm glad to see that this is happening.
Yeah, and like I said, these are people who are advocating violent collectivism, right. And these are people who don't understand history, or if they do understand history, they're espousing violent collectivism with disregard to history and the consequences of this kind of system. So to have these people, even though everybody says it's a minority, it's only a few people, but to have these people have a voice in our party, I don't think that's acceptable. I don't. And we had somebody like that on the debate stage for the chair position in our party, which I thought was an embarrassment.
Who admitted pretty much right, because again, massive nerd, me. I would have been there except for health reasons. I can't wait until my health stabilizes and I can be at more of these types of things, because I live for it vicariously through the internet. And I thank capitalism for that, incidentally. But watching that debate, I think in the first question, why do you think you should? And he was like, I don't think anyone should vote for me, or something like that. And he was essentially up there pretty much to torpedo Joshua, right? Like,
that's exactly why he was up there.
He was up there to just bash Joshua. And
that's the only reason he was there, to attack Joshua. That's it. Like I said, it was an embarrassment. We didn't get a serious debate out of it because we had a circus up on stage, and then we had that that other guy up there we didn't expect, but he
Christopher or something.
Thrasher,
yeah, Christopher Thrasher.
Yeah,
I appreciated his one question where he turned to I think Matt, right? Matt Koerner, and said, "Why are you here?" And I appreciate that, but he was kind of a last minute thing. I did a little bit of research about him when he first came up, and I was like, he ran someone's campaign in Alaska or something like that. So I don't know a lot about him, but I mean, again, like you said, it's not purging people. It's saying these ideas are incompatible.
Correct.
I mean, in the same way that for a minute there, it looked like the alt-right was trying to really put a foothold, and I don't even like using the term alt-right because it's sort of an umbrella term. You had essentially Nazis, like, I mean, people with a anarcho-fascist, if that's even a thing, ideology that were saying, okay, well, the Libertarian Party is our home, and it's like, no, it really isn't, because you're going past just having a preference for your race and saying I'd rather you really want to use some kind of force. You don't have to call it the state if you don't want to, but some kind of force to enforce that on other people. That also is not libertarianism.
No.
And thankfully, it seems like the commies scared them away, because it seems like fascists can tolerate being anywhere unless there's communists. So I guess I can sympathize with them on that. But it's important to say that communism is not libertarianism. It's not,
No.
or at least it's not our version of libertarianism. They have every right to call it that, but this isn't what the party is about. And we know that this doesn't lead to libertarianism. Collectivism, especially violent collectivism, does not lead to libertarianism. It is not a co-op. It is people being forced. You can call it a revolutionary people's committee if that makes you feel better than calling it a state, but it's still an entity that has imposed a violent monopoly of force and is forcing everyone into the same thing. And that is the opposite of what, we're not voting libertarian to replace the state with something worse.
No, it's completely antithetical to our principles. The socialists, the communists, they do not belong with us. And I think the reason that we have this element in our party is because we are still a small pond,
right,
and they can be a big fish, and they can mouth off. Yeah, and they're loud, and they're going to be heard, and that's a problem.
Right.
And that's why that goes back to why we need to grow this party, why we need to market this party better, because we need a bigger, I'm not saying a bigger tent necessarily, because that can be taken the wrong way, but we need a bigger party. We need more people in the party who espouse the same beliefs as us. And so we don't have these loud-mouthed elements who don't belong having a voice. I mean, to have one on stage for the chair debate, that's embarrassing. We shouldn't have had that happen. Because
the threshold is so low. Like, it didn't take a lot of support needed to get support because it's a smaller party. And the thing is, obviously, and again, I mean, there are probably some more radical people than me, but I don't know. I don't know how well they function in life, but I'm pretty radical. But obviously, you need a Big Ten in a system based on democracy, based on a voting electoral system. Having even 6% of the people is not enough. I mean, unless you had 30 different parties to spread it out on. If you're trying to make it as a legitimate third or even fourth party, you've got to have a bigger tent. You have to bring more people in. And that I guess that was really what kind of struck a tone struck a nerve with me, is that, okay, great, I'm pure. I'm the purest libertarian to ever libertarian. Wonderful. If it's just me, I am guaranteed to lose. If there's ever any idea of, and even if we look away from the electoral end of it, just having people on my side, you're not going to achieve libertarianism. by everyone hating you or thinking you're weird or crazy.
No, and that goes back to why I'm here. The messaging, we need to get our messaging more on point. And our problem, I see a lot of people, they want to latch on to the things that we disagree with somebody. And like Larry says, we need to employ the 80-20 rule. If they're 80% with us, latch on to those commonalities.
Right.
If we really want them to go along with more of our ideology, make friends with them first. Find your commonalities, bond over that, bring them in that way, and then you guys can civilly discuss that 20% that you disagree on. But our problem is that we nitpick and we look for those points, those small points that we disagree with somebody on, and we browbeat them to the point that they don't want to be around us anymore.
Like very hard.
Yeah.
And it's sort of one of those, because it's so small, it's almost in some ways like a dysfunctional family. And it's sort of like, you resent, what is it? Familiarity breeds contempt. You hate who you know closest. When someone is so close to you, and this happens to me, when someone is so close to me ideologically, and then there's something we disagree on, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, it's like, I thought we were a team, so I get why that happens. But like, for example, my wife is a Canadian liberal. And so we don't agree on
much of anything
politically. We actually, you'd be surprised, and it's because we're married that we've seen that we actually do have common ground. But when she says something that is very statist, I don't go, oh my gosh, I can't believe you believe that. I know she believes that, and her window is in that room, and my window's over here, and that's okay. We have a house, and we can have different windows. But when it's someone that's close to me, and then I hear that they disagree with me on even the, like you said, even the smallest thing, like the insignificant, type of thing. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you disagree with me. So I see why it happens, but in a larger party, in a party that is actually winning elections, A, that doesn't matter as much. And B, you've got so many people that it doesn't get two people arguing about something. I'm sure that there are very large clique issues and inside politics issues in the Republican Party that we never even hear of, because there's millions of people in it. So I really applaud what it is you and Robin and Joshua and the Freedom Ninjas and anyone doing that if we're going to do this, if we're actually going to look at if we're not going to, just opt out of the state, if we're going to actually try to do something on an electoral level to at least stop the growth and maybe reduce it, and if not actually achieve our goals, to do as much as we can, it's going to involve having other people not think we're weird. And
yes.
and not just weird, but like off-puttingly weird. Not weird in a people think I'm weird, but they, so far it's been a charming weird most of the time. Off-putting and scary and whatever. And that's been something that I'm still making, like I said, I'm still making peace with, because I tend to be extreme. But if we're going to talk to people, we have to talk to them where they are and not just scream roads at them over and over again.
Yes. And we need to get off of social media and stop arguing philosophical minutia and get out there and get involved locally or get involved with our state and actually do something. Because while it's fun to have philosophical arguments and tear each other's heads off online, it's not doing a damn thing for the movement at all.
Are you saying we're not going to get free through arguing in these obscure closed secret groups on Facebook with 200 members and like screaming at each other?
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
It's bound to work eventually. Yeah. That's funny, because I feel very convicted in the things you're saying, but in a funny way, because it's true. And when I hear someone say it aloud, I'm like, oh no, that's what I do. And but you're right. I mean, we have to go out and actually interact with other human beings, and and not in a resentful way. And do that, because again, the interesting thing is, if we believe our ideals, that the best way to have freedom and have a system is to unleash the human potential and remove the shackles of the state from the humankind and whatever. But then we go out to humankind and we're like, disgusting, I can't stand these people. What do we really believe our ideals, or do we think these people are scum and we just want to talk about philosophy with other people that we also argue with all the time, and how successful is that going to be? So I want to read. I read this on the last episode. I want to read it again just because I love it so much. This resolution against socialism in the Libertarian Party, and the last I checked, I guess there's still a vote on it.
Until midnight, yeah.
Yeah, and so we don't know if it's going to pass yet, but it, at the very least, it's starting a conversation about whether this type of thing is welcome or not. And so I read it just because I like it. Going back to where you said we should meet people where they are, I'm gonna read stuff that I like instead. So here's the resolution. Therefore, be it resolved that socialist and communist property ownership schemes, including the collectivization of property, unlawful usurpation of property, and incorrect characterizations of private property, unless otherwise voluntarily agreed by all parties, are incompatible with the philosophy of the Libertarian Party. I cannot articulate how much I like that sentence. And for those who may have glazed over while I read it, it basically means that the idea of forcing people to give up everything they have and put it into some collective that's managed by people that just threaten them with with violence is a bad thing, and that we don't like it.
And it's sad that this has to be a thing
Have to be said.
to begin with.
Right.
But I think that we need to take a hard stand against this element. And that's the purpose of this resolution. And to me, it's a little bit alarming that it may not pass.
Right.
I thought this was kind of a no-brainer, but people are nitpicking over the language and the wording and whatnot. And there are a couple other reasons, but
Right.
The overall purpose of it is to reaffirm our basic principles in private property and whatnot. So I'm really surprised that it's meeting with so much negativity.
The thing I'll say, and I agree, I was surprised as well. What I've seen people, I mean, obviously they're the socialists who are against it because they do support communist property ownership schemes, but the ones who most of the people that I've seen who are against it, it's pragmatism, practical, or what they believe to be pragmatism and practical reasons. It's not. Mm-hmm. They'll say, yes, I'm against these things, but can we risk making the party smaller by kicking these people out? And I'm thinking, okay, but why would you want them in? Like if they're against this being on the docket, and if the fact that we're against the highest level of authoritarianism, telling people they can't own stuff, including themselves. If that is bad, like if that's bad to them, why would we want them? It would be like if we had a resolution that said, be it resolved that we're against genocide because genocide's bad. And people go, well, there are some genocide, libertarian, anarcho-genocidalists who we might lose. Like, why does this need to be said? Why does this need to be said? And B, why would we want them there to begin with? So, but I will say, if this fails, I don't think it's because the majority of people support socialism or less than the whatever, I guess, 3/4 threshold needed to pass it support socialism. It's a fear of offending people or not growing the party, but that's also a problem. And so I'm glad to see that there are people that are saying, hey, look, libertarianism, actual libertarianism that's going to actually work, and is demonstrated to work. And I'm going to try not to go off on a rant because I feel it coming. I feel an egoist rant coming any minute now, and I'm trying to rein it in. Meet people where they are, mass persuasion. But if you're going to, the only way that you're going to have a system that works, the only way you're going to allow people to work is allow people to work within their perceived self-interest. And if you try to force them to do things, it fails, and it's never worked. And even the system we have now, which is in many ways a top-down controlled economy, the reason it does well at all is because the state allows some market economics in it. And the more market economics they allow, the better we do.
Yep.
The lower the taxes are, the better we do. The less regulations there are, the better we do. Not just here. There's nothing unique about here. What's unique is that we're one of the biggest countries that allows a decent amount of market economics. In China, which is still an incredibly repressive post-communist regime, whenever they liberalize the economy at all, they do better. And it amazes me that we're even still having this argument, which is, I guess, why we need people like Robin instead of me, to come up with ways to meet people that are stuck in this rut. But we're not going to have, this is, libertarianism happens by everyone respecting each other's boundaries.
Yes.
It doesn't come by us. Matt, the other host on Muddy Waters Media, and I have a running joke that communists are slightly worse than wild hogs, because even though they're both violent squatters, wild hogs care for their children and also have tusks, which is pretty awesome. The point of all that is that in order to have a respect for someone's humanity, you have to respect their self-ownership, right? I have to respect that you own yourself. You own your life and you own your body. Well, if you own your body and you use the labor of your body and combine it with resources that you've accumulated and turn those into commodities, and you use your ability, you use your art, you use your knowledge, you use whatever you use to accumulate things in compensation for basically for your labor. Who am I not to respect that? And if you accumulate enough that you're able to purchase a tract of land, a piece of land, or and build a house on it, who am I to say that you can't exchange the use of that property for rent? Who am I to say that you can't when you pass away, you can't bequeath that to someone that you care about, or someone you don't care about, whoever you want to? Who am I to say that you can't do that?
Yeah, and that's the problem. Anything that you acquire via trade, labor, capital, what have you, legitimately is yours. And these libs socialists are they're arguing that any land that you're not using, any property that you're not actively using, shouldn't belong to you.
Yeah, if you can't if you can't carry it around, then you shouldn't be able to. Which is ableist, by the way. That's kind of ableist because not everyone can carry a lot. So
I'm sorry, but if I worked my ass off and I bought some land that I'm just letting sit there, it's mine. Nobody's entitled to it. I worked for it.
Or
it's that simple.
Or if you inherited it from someone who worked for it, or if you inherited it from someone who inherited it, from someone who inherited it, from someone who worked for it. Someone worked for it. Someone did something for it, and it doesn't require the state to respect that. They say that it requires the state. It requires the ability to use force. And if you decentralize that force, there's no reason that you can't still have private property. You
Correct.
can, but if you decentralize that force, there's not a shot in hell you're going to have collectivism. So you tell me it requires they say, oh well, it takes the state to have private property because we have private property in the state. I breathe air in the state. Does that mean that the state is required for me to breathe air? I learned how to write under the state. Does that mean that I need the state to learn how to write? I can tell you what requires the state, or what the People's Revolutionary Syndicate Committee, or whatever they want to call it. It's a state. It's a violent monopolistic entity. I'll tell you what requires that, and that's telling every single person they don't own anything on themselves or anything else, and that everything belongs to this collective, and we're going to kill you and take it if you don't go with that. I don't know what your definition of libertarianism, but that's not mine. But
that's not it.
Yeah, that ain't it. It's not mine anyway. And like I said, I can literally, and I've got the strength. I'm in a recliner. I can do this for like 15 hours. I can just scream about socialism. So I'm not going to do that. I'm glad that I'm really appreciative and grateful for what you and Joshua and Austin and the Freedom Ninjas and people like you are doing, not just within the Libertarian Party or the Liberty Caucus or any of these different groups, but just as individuals and in these voluntary groups, to spread the message of liberty and of freedom, that it doesn't have to be this way. We can have roads without being robbed for it. We can have these things without it. You guys are doing way better than I am. I hope to maybe one day be a little bit better at messaging, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Thank you so much.
Before I let you go, because you have been absolutely amazing, and I really appreciate your time with me today. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Before I let you go, any final thoughts that you have? Obviously, this is your chance to plug anything you want to plug, anything else that we didn't cover that you want to say. You have the floor, and I leave you with it.
I guess my final thoughts are just reaffirming what some of the points that I've touched on throughout this cast. Get offline, unless that's your job, like mine is social media. Get offline a little bit. Go help out locally. Go door knock. Go, get involved with your local affiliate, get involved with your state affiliate. If you're not a sociable person, that's fine. Help spread some posts. Like Larry Sharpe, man, we've gotten a lot of our reach from people just sharing posts, getting that name recognition. You can do some of this from home. If you're a social media person and that's your preference to sit behind a keyboard, you love doing that, take a break. Go to your favorite candidate, share their posts out, say a kind word about the candidate. I mean, just little things like that. You don't have to give your money necessarily. You don't have to invest a lot of time. You can take about 5 minutes and do your parts. Go back to your philosophical arguing by all means. Later,
when everyone else is asleep, when normal people are asleep, you can go back to arguing with other people.
Of course. And I'm not saying, stop doing that. We can do both. If we enjoy our philosophical debates, great. Do both, but help out. Help us make some real steps in the real world with our movement. That's what we need desperately. Volunteer for something. I don't care. Just do one little thing, no matter what your time commitment is or your money commitment is. Anybody who's broke and has a tight schedule can do something. It's as little as sharing posts. Just get involved somehow. We need all the help that we can get in this movement. So please help us do that.
Good stuff. Thank you so much, Resa. Stick around. I'm going to talk to you a little bit during the outro. But thank you again. And folks, before I let you go, I need to remind you again of the My Fellow Americans and Muddied Waters Media. And by the way, Resa is not endorsing this and has no idea what I'm about to say, so don't put this on Resa. We are continuing with our hashtag campaign, hashtag Matandis, which is where we are trying to get Candace Owens to go on a date with Matt. Frankly, and I'm going to add some more hashtags because the reality is that when Candace went to that thing and the Antifa people jumped all over and screamed F white supremacy at her, which was not ironic at all, Charlie Kirk just stood there. And Candace can do better than that, in my opinion. Totally unbiased. So Candace, if you're watching, I'm sure you are, or if a close personal friend of Candace, which also I'm sure is happening, is watching this, please share with her the hashtag Matandis. This is not catcalling, by the way. So the hashtag Matandis, MATTANDACE. But guys, again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Resa, for joining us. And on behalf of myself and Resa and My Fellow Americans and Muddied Waters Media, thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Imagine knowing all that started off that war was pride and lies. Be a man, hold it in your eyes. Take a look up in the sky and count the doves. I believe it's 23. Every breath is every step that I've been blessed to get to breathe. Rather let you rest in praises as opposed to rest in peace. At the least, that's just me being me. Convoluted as can be. In my future, I can view it so vivid and beautifully. The distances I will leap from the man that I used to be. But now, summer doesn't exist anymore. Best case scenario, I get to finish the tour. Then chill with the gust in August before before I march and march again. Dayquil in April, I know how cold this art can get. My head hurting, I must have a lot on my mind. When I got time on my hands, they put hands on my time. When you watch them on the news at 5, don't tell me how, tell me why.